Chaos across a number of industries worldwide, including airlines, banking and healthcare, after a global IT outage hits key services. Software giant Microsoft says the underlying cause of the tech issue has been fixed, but it does acknowledge customers may still be experiencing disruptions. A check in the US now. Nick Harper joins us live from Washington, D.C. Nick, earlier we heard from our correspondents in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in New Delhi, giving us their updates on what's happening mainly in airports. Well, how else is this hitting many industries across the United States?
Well, that's right. This really is a global problem affecting so many parts of people's lives. One of the big issues, as you mentioned, of course, has been airlines. Here in the US, about 500 to 600 flights have been cancelled. The major airlines like Delta, American Airlines, they have all been affected, and there is a knock-on effect for other airlines further down the field. But it's also affected other sectors here in the US, banking, healthcare services, even emergency services. We know that some hospitals have had to cancel surgeries. In the state of Alaska, overnight, they were reporting that the 911 emergency services line was not operational. In many ways, this is being described not just as a huge problem, but one of the worst that we've seen in many years, perhaps since the cyber attack, the WannaCry cyber attack of 2017. Elon Musk here in the US has summed it up by simply saying on Twitter, it's the biggest IT fail ever. And I think the problem, therefore, is the huge impact, not just on all of the customers and people out there, but the companies behind this, Microsoft and CrowdStrike, the reputational impact, but also the monetary impact. We're waiting for the US markets to open. It'll happen in just under an hour's time. We could see billions of dollars wiped off of CrowdStrike. At one point, they were 20% down in pre-trading. That equates to about a $16 billion loss. They've pulled back slightly, about 11 to 12% down, but that still equals billions of dollars that will disappear when markets open here in the US in about 57 minutes' time.
Nick, as you mentioned, Microsoft and CrowdStrike, both, though, have come out to say they have tried to resolve this, releasing fixes. Is there a firm timeline on when this issue might be comprehensively resolved?
Well, no, there isn't. And I think that is the big problem here. The language that both companies are using seems to be deliberately vague. We've heard from the boss of CrowdStrike, George Kurtz. He spoke to NBC in the last hour or so, and he apologized, but he also said it could take some time for systems to fully recover, although they do say that they've deployed a fix. Microsoft initially said that a resolution was forthcoming, very vague language. Since then, they have said that they have fixed and detected the underlying causes, but they're still saying that it's going to be a residual impact continuing to affect services. And therefore, the thinking is that it could take days for all of this to be resolved. One of the big problems was that many of the systems, the computers out there, simply shut down. That blue screen of death that's being reported, where there was no way to log in. So they now need to be put into safe mode in order to reboot them, to make sure that they're working fully. All of that in companies that run thousands of computer systems across their global companies will, of course, take time. And the worry is that this is going to run into days and days.
Well, thanks. Nick Harper reporting live to us there from Washington, D.C. To better understand what led to this outage, we're joined by Jake Moore. He's Global Cybersecurity Advisor at software company ESET. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Moore. He's speaking to us from Dorset in the United Kingdom. We've just heard there will be residual problems, but before we look ahead, let's look back. How could this have happened in the first instance? If I could just quote from the security company that has acknowledged to be behind this global IT outage. A defect was found in a content update for Windows-based computers. How does that work?
Yeah, so what happens is lots of these technology companies will continually create updates for their software, and they send them out all over the world to all of these computers. And those updates include security patches, which make sure those computers are more secure to any known or even unknown threats. But sometimes these updates might not be perfect and they might have a few extra issues inside them. But we've never seen anything on this scale before. And of course, these companies do their updates and make sure they're tested in an environment, but they can never really test it on scale like we've seen here. And unfortunately, when a problem arises like this, we can see some some of these computers knocked off online.
Several points there,
and see
Mr.
the blue
Moore.
screen of death.
Pardon me for cutting in. First, you say there are extra issues. Now, what might that extra issue be? Hypothetically, so an update, a security update, which then triggers, I presume, some kind of disconnect with a Windows-based computer, which then in some way forces that blue screen of death, forces the computer not to be able to proceed with any applications. Is that what happened?
So we do have hardware failures and sometimes software failures. That's to do with the compatibility between the software and the Microsoft device. And when they don't, say, connect with each other like we'd hope them to, we can see them critically go wrong. Sometimes we've seen this on our own personal computers. Over the last, say, 20 years, people with a home Windows PC would have seen the blue screen of death before, but we tend not to see it in the world of business. And so what's happened here is the update's been pushed out. They're automatically set to update as and when they come through. But without that testing, it's just made all of these problems occur around the whole world.
Of course, it's easy in retrospect to say testing should have occurred on scale, testing should have occurred on time. But realistically, when a company is under pressure to rush out an update, which is vital to our cybersecurity, is it realistic to expect that testing can take place on time and on scale sufficiently to prevent outages as we have seen today?
Yeah, so you'd hope so. And they do full testing as much as they can. But this is all about speed at which they get that update out to those computers around the world. It's a huge balancing act to make sure that they have done the full testing that they can potentially do and to see if they all work on the different versions. Of course, there are lots of different versions of these computer operating systems around the world. It's not just Microsoft they're sending them out to, but in this case, it was just Microsoft that saw this. And so that balancing act is vital in this process. Now, they get it right the majority of the time, but unfortunately, what we've seen here is they were just too quick to send out their patch, which should have come with all the security updates. And because they were so quick to put it out there, unfortunately, those computers have just seen this critical error.
All right, I'll bring up a point that one of our correspondents raised, and I'll put that to you. Now, she's in Hong Kong, and she said she just traveled through mainland China, and there were none of these issues which she was reporting on the Hong Kong airport, the turmoil, the difficulty to check in, the complete breakdown in systems. That did not happen in mainland China. So she mentioned on a Chinese social media, many people saying this is justification for not being over-reliant on the Windows system, which the rest, I suppose, of the Western world and very much parts of Asia, we are very reliant on Windows-based systems. Is it realistic as well to ask that we should be diversifying away from big, like Microsoft 365, all the apps lumped into one bundle?
That's a great point. Absolutely. We do tend to see the majority of the world's operating systems do use Windows. And we've seen cyber attackers, for example, take advantage of that fact. And they do target Windows machines with specific viruses. Equally, when something goes wrong that involves Windows, they then get attacked or they get knocked offline. And this is a major problem with the fact that we do rely so much on Windows. But if you try and use other machines to, say, have as a failsafe, you then get other compatibility issues that, say, aren't the same as this. You might get the function not working as quickly. So again, that's a balance between making sure that you are using Windows correctly, Apple machines and other operating systems as well at the same amount. But we must make sure that they are as safe as possible. And yes, some countries are completely avoiding Microsoft and Windows, and therefore they won't hit with this one.
All right, final question and a quick one. So ultimately, the answer lies in balance. Balance in time, balance in security, balance in diversification. If we say we want a more robust infrastructure for our cybersecurity, is it feasible to think that we can in fact build one? Final question.
Yes, I mean, that's the perfect answer you're probably wanting, that we can create this fantastic, robust system, but it's all about making sure we do our best to update and make them robust. But we also have problems in the system that are just inevitable. We also have cyber attackers that are looking for any vulnerability in those systems. So it's a big game of making sure that it is safe to use and they can quickly be deployed around the world. But yeah, more testing is always vital. That takes more money, and I think we can all learn from this. The more we can do with testing from those big companies and making them more robust, the better we will be in the future.
Well, thanks so much for that. Jake Moore, Global Cybersecurity Advisor from ESET, looking at if it's possible to make our systems, our infrastructure, digital infrastructure, more robust and resilient.